And the other thing is people cutting, sometimes some of the residents cut through the yards. Let me just say that we lost our property manager this year out there. The person that's on site, and all of the council's concerns and your concerns are my concerns too, because guess what, it's a bad tenant that lives there. The person they live next to is not going to want to live there. And if somebody's dealing drugs out of the property, that's the last thing we want, because we've got families there, we don't want that kind of stuff. What we're proposing is we are changing how we're doing things. Now, whether or not you guys help support me or not, we're still going to make these changes at Meadow Creek because they're needed. I've spent enough time up here the last month to realize that there's some stuff there that needs to be changed. And the biggest thing that we've got, I'm asking both to stand up, is Brian Seagraves. He's a supervisor with Winterwood in Louisville. And how many units do you oversee total?
1,350.
He does about 1,350 units. And Nancy Reed is actually at the property. And she's at the property part-time. But Nancy's been with Winterwood for over 5 years, and she's a seasoned veteran in property management. And I'm going to go through my thing. Let me just say that we lost our property manager this year out there. The person that's on site, and all of the council's concerns and your concerns are my concerns too, because guess what, it's a bad tenant that lives there. The person they live next to is not going to want to live there. And if somebody's dealing drugs out of the property, that's the last thing we want, because we've got families there, we don't want that kind of stuff. What we're proposing is we are changing how we're doing things. Now, whether or not you guys help support me or not, we're still going to make these changes at Meadow Creek because they're needed. I've spent enough time up here the last month to realize that there's some stuff there that needs to be changed. And the biggest thing that we've got, I'm asking both to stand up, is Brian Seagraves. He's a supervisor with Winterwood in Louisville. And how many units do you oversee total?
1,350.
He does about 1,350 units. And Nancy Reed is actually at the property. And she's at the property part-time. But Nancy's been with Winterwood for over 5 years, and she's a seasoned veteran in property management. And I'm going to go through my thing, and they're here to answer any questions, but you're going to go sit down. Thank you. Brian and I actually drove up here. It was actually on New Year's Eve, and we sat down with, we introduced them to Carolyn and spent some time with her, and then I also introduced both of them to Police Chief Gould and Officer Jason Jones. And they kind of said the same thing, that there's some really good people that live back there, but we think there might be some drug activity, and so that's the last thing we want there. We're trying to figure out what's going on with that. Now, the other thing we've set up is the police is, whenever we have an applicant come in to live there, we're actually going to run it by the police department, and they're going to run a police check, and they're also going to give us feedback on that individual, that we can use in our evaluation process. And we've set it up so that they can call Nancy can call them. They're free to stop by the property anytime they want. And I'll tell you, and just so you guys understand, I know this isn't new, this happens from time to time. We run into this problem in other communities, and I'll take blame for it. I'll be honest with you, this last year and a half has been a little crazy, and I think Meadow Creek was neglected a little bit. I would like some dialogue if you all have questions, but I will commit that, we'll put a sidewalk in like we said before. We'll increase lighting, and these things we need you guys to approve the plans before we do it. And probably the biggest thing of this is right now at only 42 units, we can't afford to have a full-time person there. And that is a problem. I mean, right now Nancy's there part-time. And, you know, if I could add the 36 more units, then we could have somebody there full-time. And that's gonna help things. Nancy's gonna help things. Brian's gonna be up here once or twice a month. That's gonna help things. The area median income for this county, since it's part of the Cincinnati USA, is $69,200. I guess my closing arguments are is we are prepared to make a $3.6 million investment. We'll spend about $100,000 a unit to build these. We currently we probably have already spent about $450,000, of which we have about $400,000 in debt on it. We're paying debt service on that. We're paying the taxes and the insurance on the land too. And I guess last but not least, I'll be the first to admit that I've let the council down on our side. But I felt like in 2003 and 2004 when we came here that, you know, we kind of had a pact where we were going to be able to do phase 2, and I've actually had those support letters in the past. So I will admit that things have gone down there a bit, but we're committed to make them right, you know, regardless of what you guys do. And I think for the community and for everybody at stake, if we can do phase 2, you know, for a full-time person in there, it'll be better for all of us. So last but not least, Nancy and Brian and myself are available to anybody in this community any way we can. I open it up for questions from council.
Any questions from council?
Seems like to me on your follow-up letter about the tree and the sidewalk, all that was promised a long time ago. If you weren't going for phase 2, would you be here now trying to correct the problem that you see you were going to do 3 or 4 years ago?
I think if you look back at the communications, at least the way I saw it, was that, you know, the sidewalk issue came up after we had built phase 1, and we meant to be very clear. We weren't going to put the sidewalk in until we could do phase 2 just because of the expense. I mean, there was nowhere for the money to come from. I mean, that property just barely breaks even as it stands. And so I think if you look in the past years when we had it, it was based on if we could do phase 2, then what we'll do is we'll load the cost for that sidewalk, you know, and the extra lighting into the phase 2. We were able to do the things that weren't as expensive, like the fence is what I think about, the fence that's parallel to 35, you know, that sidewalk's tens of thousands of dollars.
And that was, and Randy, that is when we jumped in here for just a second, that there was concern prior to coming back to phase 2, but built into the letter of Scott, I believe Fred at the time, because we did agree to add those in, and money had never been allotted. So it does seem like it's been a long time. There were several discussions on it. Jack, I know you guys were really adamant about it. Yeah. And Scott did agree, the same as he has now, that if they get funded for phase 2, they will do that. Now, prior to coming back to phase 2, we had the same discussions, but it was always a stalemate over money.
Well, by ordinance, actually in phase 1, the sidewalk should have been installed then, because by ordinance, all apartment complexes has to have sidewalks put in at the time of construction. That's the first thing. So what you've got now, you know, you have 42 apartments, and you've got young mothers pushing strollers in the street, and I think that's a whole lot what creates when people cut through not only my property, but going through the 4th Street and the properties on that side is there is no sidewalk. And you know, I see that, and what really strikes me on that is the bend that's in that street. And I know that's the way it has to be designed because of the way the property is laid out and the easement that you have. But coming around that bend is a blind double-sided curve.